Oh, and just as a reminder to folks, when you're not speaking, you won't be showing up in the live, only on the Zoom. So the live is really smart. It'll only pick up whoever's speaking. So you're free to interact with other folks while we're um, setting up. I see some folks already beginning to join us. Welcome, Jeanette, Jerlene. I see you here too. Welcome. All right, we're actually starting to see folks joining us. So I'm going to ask folks, I know it's kind of in the later end of the afternoon, so I leave it to your discretion, but if you could join us so we could see your face for the beginning part of the meeting, that would be really nice. Also, if you would like to introduce yourself on the chat, can you drop your name, your pronoun, if you're part of any organization, whether that's formal or informal, please drop it in there and tell us, how are you going to be voting, in person or through mail? And if you're not eligible to vote, or are you going to force to vote? The live stream for us is going to be playing on our Facebook page. So if you want to share that, go onto our Facebook page and then go ahead and share from there. And James just dropped our Facebook link. So for our presenters, if you want to share that on your Facebook, I would really encourage you to do that right now. I'm saying that because I'm going to do it myself. Right, welcome folks. I'm seeing more community members joining us. Nice to see some familiar names. Even though I'm not able to see your faces, I remember them and it's really nice to see you in the space. If folks could drop it in the chat their name, their pronoun, and if they're part of any formal or informal organization, just for folks to know who's in the room. I actually know a couple of names here. I'm going to be biased and give a shout out to Jedi. Jedi is a longtime Long Beach organizer. I remember Jedi from when he was in high school and did a walkout at the Hilton. So shout out to Jedi for that. And I see Jen as well. Hey Jen, welcome. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes, so just hang tight while we let other folks into the space. And if you're waiting, I want to invite you to also share this on Facebook Live or any other platform streams that you enjoy. As you're joining, please select the language that you are most empowered with. So whether that be English, Spanish, or Khmer. And I just want to let folks know that if you would like to hear this in Spanish or Khmer, you would have to join us virtually. I mean, you would have to join us via Zoom. Thanks for folks that are starting to introduce themselves. So please drop it in the chat. Who are you? I know networking virtually is not the same as networking in person, or I don't like the word networking. I rather say community building or connecting. So if you want to community connect, drop your name, tell us who you are, your pronouns, who you're with, if you're with anyone. No, if you're not with anyone, no pressure. And I appreciate folks jumping on and being on camera because then it doesn't feel like I'm just talking to a screen and James is just like listening to me on the side. Oh, it's a party. All of our homies are joining on here. Is it nerdy if we say it's a voting party? It is kind of nerdy. I'm not gonna say that. I see the love. Thanks, Jen. All right, so as you're joining, please take the time to select your language preference. So if this is your first time, you go and select the interpretation image. And it used to look like a globe. Now it kind of looks very corporate, like a circle with a hashtag running right through it. But please select your language, your preferred language. If you're seeing this live and you would like to see this in Spanish or Khmer, you are going to have to join us via Zoom. Si están mirando esto y les gustaría verlo en español, los invitamos a que nos se unan a nosotros vía Zoom y les vamos a compartir el link en Facebook. Yeah, Jedi, it is a super old throwback. So I just want to give a shout out to our teammate Kim, who was a youth that came out of My Girls in Action. But Kim is actually in Cambodia at the moment. So wherever she's at, giving her a big shout out. All right, I'm seeing more and more folks join. If you could, go ahead and please select your language preference. Si se están uniendo y hablan español, los invitamos a seleccionar el lenguaje con el que se sientan más empoderados. Por favor, escójanlo. Pueden ir a los 3 puntos abajo y dice interpretación y escojan el lenguaje que les gustaría escuchar. So just inviting other folks to introduce themselves. I see some other friends joining. Go ahead and drop your name and your pronouns and who you're with. And if you haven't done so, please go ahead and share it on your social media. Because we're going live, so we're live streaming, so you can actually share the live stream on your platforms. All right, I'm gonna get us started now. Officially, I would like to welcome everyone to our Progressive Voter Forum organized by us truly, Long Beach Forward. A shout out to our friends, Khmer Girls in Action, Californians for Justice, and Californians United for Responsible Budgeting, also known as CURB. Thank you all for joining us and to our friends for putting this together. I would like to introduce myself formally. My name is Marlene Montañez, and I'm the Associate Director at Long Beach Forward. Woo-hoo. Feeling really happy to be doing this. Really excited to talk about elections. I also want to give a shout out to community members joining us virtually via Zoom, but also those watching in this stream on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Since we want to share this information as much as possible, you can share this forum video right now on Long Beach Ward's social media page or after the event with your friends, family, and neighbors. So James has already dropped that in the link if folks want to go ahead and do that. I also want to acknowledge, I want to do Atlantic blog. Oops, sorry. I want to acknowledge that although we are virtual, many of us, including our presenters, are connected from the occupied land of Tavanga, Gabrielino Tavanga, and Ashuman people who call this area home. We gather in solidarity tonight, not only in solidarity with Indigenous people locally, and with Indigenous-led groups fighting to protect Tavanga from development, but also with communities fighting against colonial oppression and for land back. Tonight, our goal with this voter forum is to educate people like you who care about racial, economic, and social justice about the ballot measures in this election cycle that will advance or threaten our progression towards a more just and equitable society. So shout out to you for joining us. We know it's in the afternoon and we appreciate your energy. We also aim to change the culture of voting for Black, Indigenous, and communities of color to increase voter turnout because we know our votes count. Empower folks to vote and create a voter plan because we know when people create a plan, they're more likely to show up. And we know that when we do that plan with our loved ones, we're all increasing that the double because we know spreading the word to others who care about these issues and want to make a change. So I just want to really applaud everyone showing up and also remind folks that showing up is powerful, but educating and sharing this information with other community members is just as powerful. So let's get started on our actual voter forum. As of this week, ballots have already been mailed. So you most likely already have yours or will be getting yours any moment. If you live in the city of Long Beach, there are 16 ballot measures, and that sounds like a really big number, and initiatives to vote on, ranging on issues such as housing, education, justice reform, and much more. Tonight, we will focus on just 9 of the 16 of the key measures to focus on equity and share resources to other measures and recommendations at the end. So we'll actually be sharing our own voter forum. First off, I'm happy to introduce Barack from My Girls in Action to talk about Measure A at the county level. So give a shout out to Barack. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? Thank you for having me, Marlene.
Barack, you are muted.
I am muted. Y'all can't hear me? I see my levels up. Am I good?
And everybody's giving you shout outs as you're setting up your headphones. Okay.
Okay, people are
Other
saying
folks can hear
they
you?
can hear me. Yeah, they say they
Perfect.
can hear me. I see my mic levels going up. A lot of family in place, I see. So big up everybody that's here. My name is Varak. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the organizing director with My Girls in Action here in Long Beach. And I'm going to be speaking a little bit about Measure A, which is a LA County measure. Um, I just wanted to kind of start off with that, the big like bucket or area is like housing, right? And I think when I think about just that issue, I also think of it as part of this like colonial legacy. That's you know like mostly European folks, right? Taking away land from indigenous folks that have already been here, right? And a lot of our communities know that land is life, right? And that that's why like land back and sovereignty and self-determination are important movements and constantly come up in conversation and is like a big thing worldwide. So I kind of wanted to center in that before kind of getting into the like nitty gritty about the measure. And of course, like I think every issue is still very much intersectional, right? We can't talk about like housing, homelessness, without understanding the connection between like how it's linked to crime, how it's linked to poverty, how it's linked to mental health, how it's linked to all these other resources that oftentimes aren't accessible to a lot of BIPOC communities. Um, so I wanted to kind of just share a little bit, through like my own story, and I feel like that's really, what helps us connect, and to show the importance of it for me, and then kind of give you the breakdown of like my understanding of it and why it's important. So, most folks that know me, wherever I go, I usually represent Long Beach. I wasn't born here, but mostly raised here. I spent a lot of time in the Bay, but Long Beach is home, and I'm here again, or back here again. So, growing up, I think I had a desire to, right, just want better living conditions. Growing up, poor, Southeast Asian, first generation here. Parents didn't speak English. Mostly, raised by a single mother, father in and out, and I think it was easy to really feel ashamed, feeling inadequate, right? And I think as I grew up and had a more political analysis, started to unpack, right, like that this was like internalized oppression, and um, that deeper analysis then started, I started asking questions about like why isn't my family in good living conditions? Like why don't we have enough money, right? Like why can't mom get a good job? And why can't my community like be thriving? And so I think a lot of that came up for me, and just right, just like that lack of access to resources, mental health services, extracurricular programming, right? Like, I'm not talking about just like after school programming, but like not having resources for, um, you know, summer programming, right? Like as a parent, and now having some of those resources and being like, yeah, I can put my daughter in a camp, right? Where she can learn music, where she can do all these things. But for myself, not having that at all. And so, I think about that, and when we're talking about like homelessness, or the unhoused population, I also link it back to my connection, and my experience with being a public school teacher, and knowing that there were students homeless, and there are students homeless, that those conversations aren't really talked about, right? Like they're, again, like I was like in shame, not wanting to identify, right? Of course, like you don't want to admit you're poor, right? Because it's all about materialism as we grow up. So I think being in that condition also forces us to just be in survival mode. And I think a lot of you already know this, that are here. But when you're forced to survive, that's it's hard to be able to move past that, right? And then we can't thrive, right? And even being able to be an informed voter is also like a bigger issue. So I just wanted to kind of lift that up, and bring that up as well. And so to kind of root some of the analysis in like systemic, right? This is systemic racism, classism, right? The limits of job opportunities for our people, the limit of economic mobility, is very much rooted in the lack of housing, right? Especially affordable housing for our people. And I think it's also easy to point the finger, right? I think dehumanization has always been a big project in this country, right? Which we see with um, what's going on in Palestine, and right, taking of the land, and the genocide of the people, and how like we're just supposed to accept that, right? Just like we're supposed to accept homelessness, we're supposed to accept, right, our current condition. So I think Measure A is a way to kind of get up to address that, right? Which is to make housing more affordable. I think I'm running out of time, so thanks for the reminder. So I'll just kind of wrap it up with like Measure A is to get more affordable housing, to get more accountability, and it's a citizen-driven measure. So this is put on the ballot by petition, right? It didn't come just from the legislative bodies. And we're hoping that Measure A can replace the Measure H funds and hopefully create more affordable housing. And I think that's also going to begin to help our people survive, and hopefully, right, we can move towards thriving. Thank you, y'all. That's my time.
Thank you, Barack. Really appreciate that insight and also you sharing your story. We really appreciate you connecting with your lived experience. I'm going to introduce Dr. Benitez to talk to us about Prop 2.
Thank you, Marlene, and thank you, Long Beach Forward, for the invitation. I'm going to try to share my screen here, everyone. There we go. So Proposition 2 is a state measure. It's pretty straightforward. It authorizes our state to be able to buy $10 billion of obligation bonds, specifically to repair, upgrade, and build out our facilities in public education. And it has two components. One is a K-12 public school component, and then it has a community college and career tech ed component. So it's all for improvements, renovations, upgrades, and new constructions. There's a required annual audit that goes along with this, so it's very sound in terms of a policy. Here's some key points. So it's going to cost the state about $500 million for the next 35 years to pay this back. But if we didn't have this bond, we'd have no other way statewide to make improvements to facilities in our schools. It's supported by CTA, California Nurses, Community College League of California. So a yes vote here means that we're saying, yes, we want the state to be able to borrow $10 billion to build or renovate new existing public school infrastructure. Again, both K-12 and college facilities. A no vote means we don't want the state to borrow $10 billion. So as all of us here know that have gone to any public schools here in Long Beach or in our state, we have very outdated facilities that need major repairs and major upgrades. All the data shows that when we have nice, modern, high-end facilities, there's better learning environments. So this is going to help with college and career readiness and pathways. Currently in California, there's 10,000 public schools that would benefit from this and 115 community college. Right now, most people don't realize that we don't have money locally to spend on facilities. So we require the state to partially fund this, and then we end up paying locally the remainder. And as we know, more affluent communities have access to property taxes and can pass bonds on their own that don't benefit schools that don't have the ability to upgrade, renovate facilities. So this is the breakdown. $10 billion would be spent, $8.5 billion on renovation of existing buildings, 4 new construction, 3.3, career tech ed programs, 0.6 billion, and charter schools would also get funded with 0.6 billion. Out of the 10 billion, 1.5 billion would go to community colleges. And the source for this data is the Legislative Analyst's Office, which is a nonpartisan office. So to summarize, a yes vote means yes, we want the state to borrow $10 billion to build new or renovate existing public schools and community college facilities. A no vote means we don't want the state to invest in our facilities infrastructure. As a quick update, at a recent school board meeting, Long Beach Unified School District passed a resolution in support of Prop 2 because of the much needed upgrades and repairs that our schools need, and quite frankly, that all of our students deserve. I have one additional note here. Research by the Public Policy Institute of California shows that many students across the state attend schools with, quote, substandard facilities. And students in substandard facilities tend to have lower attendance rates, morale is lower, and overall academic achievement is lower. That's Cal Matters 2024 voter guide. So a yes vote here ensures that we have baseline infrastructural funding for our schools' facilities, including community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez, for sharing that insightful information, bringing your slides and giving us the numbers. We really appreciate that. All right, now I'm going to pass it on to Uduak. Uduak, go ahead, take it away.
Oh man, you guys have me go after Dr. Benitez. That's a tough act to follow. Good evening, everybody. I'm Uduak Joe Intuk. I'm a trustee at Long Beach City College. Great to be here. I do have a presentation. If I could share, I'm gonna put on the screen as well that kind of summarizes the measure. Let me know if you guys can see it okay. Awesome. So we have a facility bond measure on the ballot for Long Beach City College. It's called Measure AC for Affordable College. And I'll step through kind of the measure, the background, our requirements, the project list, and benefits. And then I'm open to taking questions and answers afterwards. So this is the required 75-word statement. This is to renovate labs, nursing, vocational job training, classes, remove asbestos, improve drinking water, electrical, sewer. So it's $990 million over the next 20 years. It's $20 per $100,000 assessed value. And then no single year would be able to borrow more than $55 million. And so just, stepping back, this is a public financing model where the college district borrows money, and then over in the future, property owners in the four cities of Long Beach, Lakewood, Signal Hill, and Avalon would pay back the payments on it in the future. So, and it's a progressive tax. So depending on the assessed value of your home or commercial property, you would pay $25 per 100,000. So now if you're not a homeowner, you don't pay anything. If you have a house that's worth $100,000 and you had it for a long time, your grandparents, then it's $25 per year. And scaling that up, if your house was worth $500,000, you would pay $125 per year. So very low rate of taxation, but it goes a long way for all the properties in the four cities that contribute into this. It does have Prop 39 requirements of auditing. We have a public oversight committee. All the funds have to be put on the website of what it's being used for, and we have several annual meetings to share about it. But this is what you will see when you get your ballot, and our local measures are on the ballot first. So you'll see if there's a candidate for city council or school board in your area, you'll see the city's 3 measures and then the community college measure. Usually I'm hearing it's on the first page of people's ballots. So this is what you'll see. The bond measure requires a 2/3 adoption by the board, which we got a unanimous vote. And then it also files under Prop 39 guidelines, but it needs 55% of voters in the area for it to pass. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, are you?
I'm presenting right now. Yeah, sorry. Hey, everybody. I have a visitor in the room. I'll be here 1 sec. But so this is just the legal requirements that the board of trustees voted to put it on the ballot. It was not a signature gather or something from the state, but it was the 5 members of the board unanimously put it on the ballot. And so just kind of summarizing some things that are going to happen. We have a 5-year master plan. So we've already, the current schedule is the last 5 years of funding that we have. So if we don't pass this measure, we wouldn't be able to renovate any more buildings. But we're going to be able, with this measure, to do renovations and new building on both campuses. So at the liberal arts campus, we'll be able to put a new library, new student housing, new welcome center. We're going to be able to expand our nursing laboratories. We currently have about a 3-year wait list for nursing. So we'll be able to expand that so we can get more folks into nursing. We're going to be able to do student and workforce affordable housing. So that's folks at a certain income level. Usually it's our classified students or classified workers or new hired faculty are eligible, but it's also going to be open to our students across the city. So we currently do not have any student housing on campus. We're doing our first 2 projects. So we're going to generate probably about 300 beds. This will allow us to add to that. Hopefully in the next 10 years, we can do 1,000 beds. But we'll also do have a new health and wellness facility at the LAC, the liberal arts campus on Carson and Clark. Now on the trades campus down in Central Long Beach, we're going to be able to also renovate buildings, put new job training center. I'm really excited about a middle college. So it'd be a joint facility of Long Beach Unified where students can earn their associate degree and high school diploma at the same time while they're in high school. So you're 18 if you're going to go to work. Now you're more employable. If you're going to go to college, now you have half of your units done and half of any potential student debt taken care of. And it would be at no cost for students to attend the middle college. Both campuses will get solar panels and different sustainable infrastructure investments that we would otherwise wouldn't have funds to do. So there's much more details on our website of all the projects. And here's just a summary of some of the projects, but we've already identified $1.53 billion in need. That's excluding cost increases, available matching funds, and other potential sources. So it's actually bigger than that. But we're only asking for 990 million. You know, it's like 990 million and 99 cents. You know, we're just under $1 billion. But we know we have more than $1.5 billion in needed improvements on the campus. And just to talk about some of the benefits. One, this is an investment in our workforce and student body. You know, we're going to be able to have folks who can work on these construction projects that are here. It also expands our job training capacity for the college. It's going to modernize our classrooms and laboratories. You know, when you have new learning environments, you have better indoor air quality, you have better outcomes, you have better lighting. It's a win-win for both the faculty and the students. It's new construction contractor and vendor opportunities. So we're really focused on a preference in Long Beach to give local businesses an opportunity to work with the college. We're going to have the ability to build student and worker housing. We're part of the Long Beach Housing Promise, and this will be able to allow us to invest and participate in building more affordable housing citywide with the school district, Long Beach State, and the city of Long Beach. And then we're reinvesting in our local economy with preference for hiring veterans, local residents, and also students. Anybody who's went to Long Beach City College gets a hiring preference on these construction jobs. Finally, it makes us eligible for county, state, and federal matching money. These are dollars that otherwise would go to other campuses or we wouldn't have access to, but it also makes our local investment go 2 and 3 times farther than just the money that we'd have there. So I'll close there, and it's Measure AC for affordable college. You'll probably see yard signs about keep Long Beach City College affordable. Vote yes on Measure AC. We had no argument in opposition. So when you open the ballot, you read the longer description. It's only our 200-word argument in support. And then we're asking folks to vote by election day, November 5th, but you probably got your ballots in the mail this past weekend or this week. And so it should be on your first page of your ballot. With that, I'll stop sharing, and I don't know if I take any questions or we go to the next speaker.
Yeah, Udo, can I invite you to answer I see a question in the chat for you, and I'm going to move us on to our next speaker, but also wanted to give a shout out to, I was a product of Middle College, and I know how instrumental it is for BIPOC students to be exposed to community colleges at a very young age. So I just want to say, like, I'm really excited of that, the potential of AC impacting BIPOC students in the PCC campus. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my compañero, Gabriel. Go ahead, take it away, Gabriel, talking about Proposition 5.
Great, thank you, Marlene. Hi, everyone. It's great to see Long Beach community in the house. Gabriel Perez is my name, he, him pronouns. I'm a senior organizer at LANE, it's LA Alliance for a New Economy, on the Long Beach for a Just Economy campaign. I'm going to be talking to you today about Proposition 5. One way to understand it is a change in election rules. I know that sounds super exciting and glamorous, but another way to look at it is around affordable housing and raising money that we need, which makes it a great segue after Prop 2, Measure AC, and Measure A. So it's a statewide ballot measure. James, can we move on to the next slide there? Yeah, thank you. So right now, the laws that exist in California require a supermajority to pass local bonds. Supermajority is 66% of the vote, a little over that, 66%, to pass or approve local bonds across the state. Every other type of law just requires a simple majority, or 50% of the vote plus 1. And so what this will do is change that threshold. James, can we move on to the next one there? Prop 5 wants to change that threshold from the supermajority 66% down to 55%. This is going to make it easier for California voters to approve bonds specifically for affordable housing and critical infrastructure projects. It's going to unrig the system to make it easier for us to raise money that we need specifically for affordable housing and for infrastructure. Move on to the next one. Cool. And like the reason I said it's a great connection, a great segue from Measure A and Prop 2 is that the housing crisis is at the root of why Prop 5 is important. The same issues, the same crisis that we're experiencing here in Long Beach and across the county is happening across the state. There's an incredible lack of affordable housing across the state. We know that even with the lack of affordable housing and so many folks sleeping every night on the street, there's thousands of units that are being held off the market because they're investment vehicles, not actually intended to house folks. And we know that all these issues are compounded with structural and institutional racism, right? So we know our folks of color, our communities are the ones that are being disproportionately impacted by the housing crisis. We can move on to the next one there. James, thank you. Yeah. When I'm thinking about different propositions on the measure that seem dense or hard to understand, one of the things that I do is look at who is supporting the measure and who the opponents are. So these other folks are the types of folks, these are usual suspects that they've raised up to 30 million or close to $30 million against Prop 5. Wealthy landlords, corporate real estate industry. This CBRT, or the California Business Roundtable, is an enemy of workers, renters, and immigrants. And then the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, another example, right, that is a registered opponent of Prop 2 as well. These are the folks that want to maintain the status quo. And so the reason that there's a supermajority requirement is because of Prop 13 that passed in 1978. These types of folks recognize the shift in demographics and recognize that there was a risk to losing their power. And so that's why there's a harder or a supermajority that makes it harder for us to pass local bonds, like for affordable housing. And so that's why these folks are the ones that are raising millions of dollars against it. And so another way to look at Prop 5 is, a vote yes for Prop 5 is the statement that we can, that no one should be able to buy our democracy, right? We move on to the next one there, James. Thank you. Yeah. And the connection between this and with Measure A, which is a crucial affordable housing measure here in the county, that will create 3 times more affordable housing that exists in LA County and an increase in annual revenue of $1.2 billion. Those are the types of bonds that can be passed across the state easier with Prop 5. And these are the convictions that inform why we support it, right? Everyone deserves access to safe and affordable housing. Homes are for people and not for profit, and housing is a human right, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we can field some questions.
We actually don't have time for questions, just trying to be mindful of stuff, but folks are more than welcome to drop them in the chat, either here or on Facebook, and we could definitely field those back onto here. Is that okay, Gabriel?
Great. Thank you so much, Madeleine. Thanks everyone for listening.
All right, now I'm going to move us on to Maddie. Maddie's going to be talking to us about Prop 33. Go ahead, Maddie, take it away.
Hey everyone, good evening. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Maddie Ribble. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a Long Beach resident, proud to be part of the Long Beach Forward community. My day job, I work for an organization called the Children's Partnership. We work to advance children's health and racial justice, primarily by driving statewide policy change. We take a whole child approach to thinking about health. We certainly know that healthcare is important. Healthcare access is important to the health of kids and families, but we also know that kids can't be healthy if they don't have access to stable and affordable housing, clean air and water, environmental justice, economic security. Those are equally important to the health of our families, excuse me, as healthcare access is. We also know that 75% of the kids in California are kids of color, kids under 18. So we can't support kids' health without confronting the racial injustice that's built into all of our systems. So that's at the center of our work. So I'm gonna actually talk about 2 questions today, I think back to back, Marlene, if I'm not mistaken. The first one is Prop 33, which is also known as the Justice for Renters Act. This is a really simple proposition, so I thought I'd actually just read it to you. And don't worry, it's one sentence. So I'm going to tell you what it is. This is what the measure says. The state of California, may not limit the right of any city or county to maintain, enact, or expand residential rent control, period. That's what it says. So let me back up a little bit and say a little bit about why this is important. And you all know this, but I want to throw this out in this forum. Long Beach is a majority tenant city. 60% of residents in Long Beach are tenants. More than 40% of households are cost burdened in Long Beach. People know this. You all live here and work here, right? Those are households paying more than 30% of their income for rent or mortgage. Rent has gone up by 20% in the last 10 years. We know that wages have not gone up by 20% in the last 10 years. And as a result, more than 1 in 5, partially as a result of this, more than 1 in 5 kids in Long Beach live in poverty. 1 in 5 kids in the city live in poverty. Housing unaffordability is one of those reasons. So at the state level, there's some tenant protections that are embedded into state law, and that's a good thing. They're not enough, but there's some protections there. But we also allow local jurisdictions, mostly cities or counties, to enact additional protections for renters. And many cities and counties have additional protections, including the city of Los Angeles. However, 3 decades ago, the legislature passed a law, which is known as Costa-Hawkins, you may have heard, which puts limits on what cities and counties are allowed to do. And what Prop 33 does is simply repeal Costa-Hawkins. It takes away the prohibitions and gives that power back to cities and counties. And there's really 3 main things that Costa-Hawkins prohibits local communities from doing. One, it says local communities can't put any rent regulations on single-family homes. But we know we got so much single-family zoning in this city and this state. None of those homes are allowed to be governed by any rent control regulations. Also can't put rent regulations on apartments built after 1995. It's a long time ago. It's a lot of stuff that was built since 1995. Cities and counties can't put any regulations. And third and lastly, Costa-Hawkins says cities and counties can't regulate what landlords charge when renters move in. They can regulate what the level of increase is and how frequently, but they can't regulate when renters move in. So Prop 33 doesn't actually extend any new protections to anyone or force any communities to put additional rent control measures in place. It simply puts that control back in the hands of local communities to make decisions in the best interest of their local needs, and gives folks like us the ability to organize in our local communities to push our local decision makers to enact policies that will be good for our communities. Like anything, when you want to know what's happening, follow the money. The California Apartment Association and the realtors have put in more than $100 million to kill this measure. They're the exact folks who benefit from and get rich from the status quo. But our local officials want this power. You know, the Board of Supervisors in LA County has endorsed it because they want the power here at the local level to make decisions. So we ask you, please vote yes on 33. Give the tools locally back to our communities to protect renters. And if you want to learn more, you can go to the website yeson33.org. I want to say just sort of parenthetically for 2 sentences, Prop 34 is actually closely related. I'm not going to talk much about it, but this measure, Prop 33, and 2 previous versions that you may remember being on the ballot, funded primarily by a group called the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which funds this because they understand that the folks they serve need affordable housing to be healthy. Prop 34 is written and funded by the same folks, the California Apartment Association, the realtors, which looks on the face like it's about saving money on prescription drugs. It is written in a way that only applies to the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and says they may not spend money basically on ballot questions. And it's a way to try to eliminate their support for rent regulation that their opponents don't like. So you can check out noon34.org to learn more about that. So let me pause there and I'll kick it back over to you, Marlon.
Thanks, Patty, for through 33 and 34. Go ahead and start them.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to do one more, y'all. So Wanted to talk to you about no on 35. 35 is a confusing one because if you look at it on the surface, it looks pretty darn good. But I want to tell you a little bit about why Prop 35 will do more harm than good to the communities that rely on Medi-Cal, and to ask you to vote no on 35. If you're not familiar, Medi-Cal is the state's Medicaid program that provides healthcare services for low-income folks, and it's funded more or less 50% by the state and 50% by the federal government. The proponents, the people who are pushing for Prop 35, claim that it will protect access to Medi-Cal for 15 million patients. If you look in the voter guide, it says it will make permanent a tax on managed healthcare insurance plans to pay for Medi-Cal services. So if you're a progressive voter, which you are because you're in this forum, sounds pretty good. We're going to tax health insurance companies to pay for healthcare for low-income folks. That sounds pretty good. But I want to tell you why my organization, together with Long Beach Forward, Disability Rights California, Courage California, League of Women Voters, and others are voting no. So just a little background first. This tax, which we call the MCO tax, Managed Care Organization tax, this already exists. It's not new. Prop 35 doesn't create the tax. This tax has been around for a long time. It runs no risk of expiring. There's broad consensus in the legislature to continue it. My organization has historically worked alongside the proponents of this question and provider groups on many shared priorities. And we agree 100% that many providers in California who provide healthcare services to Medi-Cal patients are not paid adequate rates, and that hinders access. So we agree on the nature of the problem, but we don't think Prop 35 is the answer. And we think it'll do more harm than good. So I just want to point out 3 reasons why Prop 35 is harmful. One, it prioritizes funding for a narrow and specific set of provider groups and their interests over the healthcare needs of our communities. Part of what it does, Prop 35, is it takes billions of dollars in existing revenue. Prop 35 doesn't create the revenue. It takes the existing revenue, which currently supports the overall Medi-Cal program and the state's general fund, and it diverts that money permanently to just a handful of specific provider rate increases. If it passes, numerous funding allocations that were in this year's state budget will immediately become inoperable. These are programs that are funded through the current MCO tax in the state budget that are going to be eliminated if Prop 35 passes. One of those is providing continuous Medi-Cal coverage for our youngest children, 0 to 5. This policy, called continuous coverage, was implemented by the feds during the pandemic because we know when families with young kids have to reapply every year, things slip through the cracks and kids get kicked off coverage. People move, they don't get their mail, they don't open it, they have language barriers, they have questions about reapplying that they can never get answered. So the federal government said during a public health pandemic, we're going to keep kids on Medi-Cal from 0 to 5 without asking them to reapply, because we know healthcare coverage during those years is so important that developmental screenings and support for kids is crucial. The feds just rolled back that policy as they've sort of unwound these pandemic protections. As a result, in the last year in California, 370,000 kids have lost Medi-Cal coverage. Almost all of them for what we call procedural or paperwork reasons. They are eligible, but they didn't return the envelope, they didn't get the envelope, they didn't understand it. They called a county call center and they waited for 2 hours to get an answer and no one picked up. These are kids who are eligible for Medi-Cal and getting kicked off. The state this year in the state budget said that's ridiculous, and they put in the money to, in California, ensure kids 0 to 5 stay on Medi-Cal. Prop 35 will roll that back and eliminate that funding. That's going to guarantee countless thousands of more kids are going to lose their Medi-Cal coverage. In addition, the state budget funds rate increases for community health workers and promotoras who are paid often poverty wages, and also has funding for things like adult day health services that our seniors depend on. All of those things are going to be rolled back and eliminated by Prop 35. And that's just the immediate impacts. Over the next 3 years, the state's Department of Finance, not us, the Department of Finance, says that Prop 35 will cost the general fund $12 billion. So that 12 billion is going to come from somewhere. We know it's going to come probably from programs that we care about, programs our communities depend on. Is it affordable housing? I don't know. Is it environmental protection? It's going to come from somewhere, that $12 billion. Want to mention just one other reason this measure is so bad for communities is because it cuts consumers and consumer advocates, and even cuts our elected representatives out of decision-making. So the allocation of funding under Prop 35 is decided by just a few selected provider organizations who happen to be the people bankrolling the measure, with no voice from Medi-Cal enrollees, community members, other essential provider groups like community health workers and promotoras. The measure sets up an advisory committee, which again excludes all voices of consumers and patient advocates, except for those folks bankrolling the measure. And by passing this policy through a ballot measure, it makes it almost impossible for the legislature to update or change it in future years. The legislature being the group of elected officials we represent to pass the state budget every year. Want to just point out in closing, just one last difference. I read you the entire Prop 33 measure a few minutes ago. On the other hand, Prop 35, the measure is 18 pages long of legalese that I guarantee you, 0.1% of voters can understand. So I just encourage you, if you're not convinced by what I've shared tonight, go read the measure, not the summary, the measure itself. And if you can understand it and you think it's a good idea, by all means, vote for it. But if not, want to encourage you to vote no on 35 because it will cause more harm than good to Medi-Cal and the communities we work with. So thank you so much. I'm going to put some websites in the chat for the campaigns. And if there's any questions, happy to answer them in the chat.
Thank you, Maddie. And you won't have to remember what you're voting yes and no on, because later on we're going to actually share a voter guide with the exception for 34. Did we have 34 in there? We do. Yes. So you won't have to remember it all because we'll have a voter guide. But I know some of you are taking notes. So thank you for being so thoughtful and writing those down. Thank you so much, Maddie, for walking us through these 3 different propositions. Now I'm going to hand it over to Olivia, who's going to walk us through Proposition 36.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Long Beach Forward, for having us all together. It's so great to learn about all of these initiatives. And yeah, really appreciate all the speakers for informing us. My name's Olivia, and I am an organizer with Californians United for a Responsible Budget. CURB is a little easier of an acronym, but our mission is to reduce the number of people imprisoned in the state of California, reduce the number of jails, prisons, immigrant detention centers, any carceral facility in the state, and shift funds away from the corrections budget to areas that are actually life-affirming for our communities, like housing, education, job services, reentry services, all the things, mental health care, all the things we know keep us safe. And yeah, tonight we're talking about unifying against Prop 36. Yeah, love in the chat, no on Prop 36. And thank you so much, Marlon, for the slides. We can go to the next one. What is Prop 36? Yeah, like Maddie said, it's always good to start with where the money is coming in from. Proposition 36 is funded by mega corporations like Walmart, Home Depot, Target, and law enforcement. And it really seeks to undo criminal justice reforms approved by California voters in the past and that are working effectively too. Prop 36 would increase penalties for several drug and theft criminalized acts, increasing state prison spending and creating unfunded costs at the state and local levels. This is really important because Prop 36 doesn't offer a single stream of funding, and we know when there's not a stream of funding, vital services are inevitably impacted. Prop 36 would also roll back Prop 47, which was an initiative passed in 2014 by California voters with nearly 60% of the vote. And Prop 47 helped reduce deadly overcrowding in California state prisons and has saved nearly $1 billion, $816 million and away from the prison system and has redirected those funds to K through 12 education, preventative programs, survivor services, mental health, and drug treatment programs. In LA County specifically, and these funds, this 816 million has been distributed throughout various counties in the state. In LA County specifically, 110 million of those dollars have gone to housing, treatment, education programs, which have also helped our communities in Long Beach too. They've also, I just read a statistic today, actually, 90% of people who received these services specifically in LA County did not recidivate. They did not go back to prison with any crime. And these programs have helped over 10,000 people in LA County alone. So the effects and the benefit impacts of Prop 47 funding is really evident in our communities here in LA County as well. And next slide, please. Thank you. And what does all this mean? Really, Prop 36 will create a war on drugs 2.0 in California, returning us back to an era of mass incarceration. What this means is it'll cut services. So that 816 million in savings from Prop 47 will be gutted. Essential harm prevention programs, education, job services, housing programs will be cut. And it costs, an interesting statistic too, is that it costs $131,000 to incarcerate one person in the state of California and roughly $3,270 for someone to participate in a Prop 47 program. So not only are Prop 47 funded programs better for our communities, but they also cost significantly less than incarceration. Increase incarceration and costs. Prop 36 will drive more people into imprisonment and increase spending at every level of the criminal punishment system. So prisons, jails, local court costs. And some projections show that this could lead to 65,000 or more people locked up inside jails and prisons, and potentially billions more in costs. And just wanted to note, we might see kind of varying projections for what costs could be. And this is kind of part of the mystery behind Prop 36. We see throughout history that regressive criminal justice measures, it's unclear really what they will cost, which I think is another red flag when it comes to Prop 36. And also, not finally, but just yet another impact is the threat to communities. Prop 36 will disproportionately impact Black, Brown, immigrant, disabled, and poor people. And thank you for the time check. I will wrap it up. And yeah, we know disabled people are disproportionately represented in our prison system. Prop 36 will most likely increase houselessness, since houselessness and incarceration are so deeply tied together, just causing generational harm for our communities that have already been criminalized. So yeah, we cannot go back to mass incarceration. You might see Prop 36 kind of lauded as a treatment-oriented measure, but we really know it is more incarceration, and that is a false solution for our communities. Our communities need services and programs. And I won't continue on. I will drop this in the chat, but we do have some events and ways to take action coming up. There's actually one this Monday in Boyle Heights to canvass against Prop 36, and would love to see some of y'all there. And thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Olivia. Thanks for reminding us here, not cages. All right, I'm gonna move us along to Measure JB and Measure LB, and James from our team will be breaking that one down.
All right, good evening, everyone. For those of you who, I really love all the energy and appreciation from everyone who's been sharing about all the ballot recommendations. So we covered some LA County stuff. We covered a lot of state of California ballot measures. I'm going to talk about two measures in particular at the city of Long Beach level that are on the ballot that we also want to highlight and talk about from an equity and justice perspective as well. So the first measure that I'm going to talk about is Measure JB. You'll remember JB because it probably sounds very similar to Measure Job. So Measure JB is a charter amendment that has been proposed by the city of Long Beach to combine the city's civil service and human resources departments into one unified hiring department operating under the Department of Human Resources. So in Long Beach, we do things a little differently in the fact that we historically have had two different departments, so one for hiring and then one for managing human resources and employee matters. Hiring has historically been civil service department, and the civil service department has also had a citizen-led commission called the Civil Service Commission. And so there have been many challenges over the past couple of years as the city has faced hiring shortages, and a lot of conversations internally within the city of Long Beach about how do we address those hiring shortages and what solution is going to be best for us to move forward. What Measure JB proposes and would do is amend our city's charter, which can only be changed by a majority vote of the residents of Long Beach, the voters in Long Beach, to combine both of these departments under human resources. And the Human Resources Department will report directly to the city manager. So if you've been part of our popular education efforts in the past, you're probably also familiar that even though we elect a mayor in the city of Long Beach, we have an appointed city manager who is the executive that manages the day-to-day affairs of the city and actually has many of the department directors and heads who report to them as well. Even though the city manager is not an elected position, the city manager does hold a lot of power within and influence within the city. So with Measure JB, we would see both civil service and human resources combined. And the measure would also implement classified hiring preferences for Long Beach residents, including students from local colleges and universities, current employees, even certain internships and apprenticeships. And this would help us really ensure that folks who are part of the Long Beach community would be able to be part of our local government and part of these different kinds of positions as well. The measure would eliminate the current Civil Service Commission and establish a new independent Civil Service Employee Rights and Appeals Commission composed of 5 residents of the city to resolve complaints regarding civil service rules and classified service hiring processes. So this commission could conduct investigations concerning the enforcement of different rules or even employee disciplinary appeals, and they would have reports that would go to the city as well. So folks from the perspective of talking about wanting more local hiring, wanting more job opportunities for young people, for folks who live in the community, really see Measure JB as a way for us to do that. Some of the concerns around Measure JB are around the transparency and independence from the city manager or from the city, but also thinking about what does it mean for us to have our independent commissions within the city, such as the Harbor Commission, such as the Utilities Commission, versus consolidating within different departments. So Measure JB is a very, we'll drop more information into the chat and into our resources. But Measure JB is an important measure that may determine a lot of how we are really resourcing our different positions within the city and addressing job opportunities for not just young folks, but also employee protections, hiring protections for different protected classes in our community as well. The second measure I want to talk about that is very important is, and you can't forget the name of this one, it's a Measure LB. So Measure LB would do two things. First, it would remove the exemption from the City of Long Beach's gas utility user tax ordinance for charges made to electrical corporations and government agencies. So what that means is it would close this tax loophole for energy companies within the City of Long Beach so that they are paying the same gas utility user tax that we as individuals and taxpayers and residents from the city are paying. So first off, we love closing loopholes to ensure that corporations are paying their fair share overall. But this is also really important. Measure LB is also really important because the reality is that for the entire existence or the very long existence of the city of Long Beach, we have been heavily reliant on revenue from oil. And so we know that with climate change, we also know with the organizing and the efforts that are being led in the community to reduce our reliance overall and move away from oil, that is impacting the reality of our tax revenue within the city. And so as we're trying to think about how do we offset those tax revenues to continue supporting all of the general fund services, all of the essential services that we rely on in the city of Long Beach, we are going to need to backfill all of those revenues. So Measure LB is a solution that can help us close this tax loophole on power plants and corporations within the city of Long Beach, and actually help us reduce our reliance on oil, but also ensure that these corporations are paying their fair share and getting more revenue into the general fund for the issues that matter to us and those priorities, whether it's language access, whether it's the Long Beach Justice Fund, whether it's affordable housing. That's what all of the funds that are going to be levied from this tax revenue are going to be going to. So that is Measure LB. I'll send it back to you, Marlene.
All right, folks, let's bring it home. We know that any good action needs to be planned out. So I'm going to ask James to go ahead and pull up the call to action slide. So just reminding folks that we have already published our voter guide online. So if folks want to go ahead and take a look at it, it is online and you are more than welcome to share it. And I know some of our comrades on the call today also have their own voter guide. So if folks want to share those, that's totally fine as well. But in order for folks to show up to vote, we need to do little atomic habits, right? Which is to make a plan, to have it in our brains already pre-cut out. And the way we do that is by checking your voter registration at labot.gov, and that is for you to check if your voter registration is up to date. And then if you have not voted, you still have time to do so. And I want to give a shout out before I go to the next step to the youth from CFJ, who most likely will become eligible to vote in the next coming days. So shout out to them. Second thing is that what will you vote on? Read and share your voter guides. And I just want to reiterate, our voter guide is already published. And if other of our comrades are sharing theirs, they're more than welcome to drop it in. Third, how will you vote? Will you mail it in? Are you going to do it in person? Are you going to drop it off at a drop box? And I just want to remind folks, you don't need to vote at your voter center. LA County allows you to vote anywhere within the county. You don't have to actually show up to your polling place as people had to do in the past. Now you can actually vote weeks in advance. So you could actually go in person to any open voter center. And you can actually look those up, or you could vote by mail. Everybody should be receiving a vote by mail ballot, or you could drop it off at a drop box. Fourth, when will you vote? Is that going to be tomorrow, next week, election day? For myself, I'm going to be voting the weekend before. I'm actually going to make a plan to get everybody in my household that votes to vote with me. And lastly, how celebrate and share, right? It's always nice to post up those really nice pictures of us actually voting to remind other folks to also vote. And I see James already beginning to drop voter guides from some of our other partner organizations. So just reminding you that there's a number of conversations and voter guides out there. And just to summarize it, the important part is that folks show up and vote. I want to just remind everyone that in Long Beach, a vote, ballot, or city council or other things can be won or lost by a single vote. And I am not exaggerating. I just want to remind folks how important votes are in Long Beach, because that's how it goes down. So with that said, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your energy. We love being in community with everyone. I want to give a big shout out to our comrades that are on this call, that are already door knocking, that are engaging with voters in different ways, who are also putting together their own voter forums and their voter guides. It takes a whole village to make this happen, to change the culture of voting within our own communities, within our own families. So I just want to give a shout out for all the voting folks that showed up today, and also reminding us that not all of us are privileged enough to actually be voting, and how do we hold space for communities that aren't able to vote as well. So just giving a shout out for everyone that engages in the voting process, whether they drop a ballot or not. So with that said, have a great night, everyone. See y'all soon. Goodbye.